parts. What are the parts that are up for you? And as you notice them, what are your two loudest arisings in you? What are the two loudest ones? What are the two? Maybe it's a spiritual achiever, like, oh wow, I'm gonna like what Abby was saying. I want some of that. I'm hoping I'll get something from that today. What are the two loudest parts? And as you're aware of them, can you be aware of both of them or more parts at the same time? How do you see them? How do you feel them? There's a sense of zooming out. Is it an image of the galaxy and planets, a hot tub? How are you aware of these parts? And then what are they arising in? What's the background? What's the beingness right now for you? And it might just be really, really small. It might just be there's some presence here, or there's some peace, or there's some stillness, or wait, somewhere I find some okayness. What what's everything arising in? It arising in? Is there Abby mentioned the sense of safety. Is there some safety here? What's most like safety that's here for you now? And then those can you be aware of both the background, the beingness, and the foreground? The speaker Milo and I like, she calls this simultaneous awareness, being aware of the foreground and the background at the same time. We're being aware of the causeless peace and okayness and the sense of want and aliveness at the same time. And how do you do that? Does it help to have an image? How are you aware of all of this? Is it an image that helps or is it all somatic? And two more questions. As you're aware of your parts, what do they want? What is wanted as we meet here today, as we have this precious time together with 7 friends? What is it that you want? And you can hear from your parts, they'll tell you. What is it that your parts want? Is it this loveliness of connection? Is it in this connection? Wow, there's peace and ease and flow. Is it more clarity? Is it aha? It's like it's so fun to discover new things. Or is it just to have fun? What is it that your parts want? Or is it more spiritual? Like, wow, I'm really getting a sense of those words, Satchitananda, and I want to go deeper into that, or I want to go deeper into the bliss of being, or a sense of oneness that people speak of. What is that? Like, how deep can I go into oneness? Words like samadhi, unity. What is it that you want? And last question, this is the real trick question. Where is that to be found? As you hear what your parts are wanting, what of that can be found here, can be found from self, from your very nature? Just to know, see if you can feel into that, to feel into what the parts want. And is it often kind of a going into time, going into the future? The parts are wanting, and there's a sense of in the future, or maybe 15 minutes from now, maybe tomorrow, maybe a year from now when I'm on this special retreat. And then as here we are, here now, what of what's being longed for can be found here? All right. Okay, we'll come back together. We can shake all that off. We're not really this is different than other groups where we're not understanding, we're not going anywhere. There's nothing to do. We're just playing around and seeing what happens, letting our system update organically. It's like we're playing a sport together or we're dancing. So here we are. And let's just kind of, as this will be a co-creation, let's just see what's here for each of us as we explore together, and maybe we'll do another kind of a deeper, longer dive. We'll see where it all goes. And I'm just going to kind of move around my screen as it kind of shows up here. But before I do that, is there anything bubbling? Anybody have something bubbling? Anything bubbling before we go to Milo? Oh. Okay. So as we move to Milo, just again to notice what's here for you. How are you? And as we go to Milo, like I have such a curiosity. Milo and I were on the phone a couple days ago exploring these things. Actually had the funnest thing. I got to be at bedtime for him and his family where they were like I got to join in singing a song to his kids. It was so fun. But what here we are. It's like, but what's here for Milo today as we see Milo? It's like the kids aren't there, his wife's not there. What's going on for Milo? His partner's not there. And um, Milo, what's going on? What's here for you?
So yeah, I've just actually put the kids down for nap time, so similar but different. And I set my alarm. I was just falling asleep, and I was like, "Oh, workshop hour," you know. So happy I made it. It's sort of 50-50, you know, if you hit the snooze button or if you actually get up. So I'm happy to be here. And I'm noticing two parts. One part is sort of like, oh, maybe I could have stayed, you know. Maybe I could have just stayed with the girls and just taken a nap. So there's a bit of hmm, I'm not sure. I've been exploring, just really feeling into what's being longed for. Like truly, you know, what do I want apart or in contrast to what do I think I should do, you know, that sort of thing, like obligations and whatever, and what is like a true authentic desire. So I think that part is present and it's just kind of trying to figure it out, you know? Did I want to come here? Did I want a nap? Which one is it? So I'm sitting with that one. And the second part is kind of clinging to the experience I had earlier today in the morning when I just felt a little bit fresher. It's late afternoon here already, and there's like a lower energy, and there's a part of me that like, oh, I wish I was still in that openness and energy and awakeness and movement and flow. Hmm.
Yes. So, if anything Milo said, and by the way, and Rossi, it's just some people pay for an hour. We'll go for an hour and a half, whatever it feels like. It's just all in the flow for in celebration of your parts, just like Milo's sharing right now. Did anything that Milo shared foreign to you? Can we all relate to it? The sense of, well, there's a little polarity here. It's like if you can imagine, like Milo was taking a nap with his two daughters. Oh, and it's like, oh, maybe I should have just stayed there. That could have been really nice. And we can't relate to that, the yumminess of just of that space. And then there's another part that he says, like, no, but this will be fun. We'll get on the group. We'll get with my friend Sid and my other friends and we'll explore. And Milo's had all these ahas recently and getting to share those and play those around with us. And we all relate to that polarity. I mean, I guess we all had that as we all decided whether or not to come today. I'm sure there was some kind of tension. It's like, oh, I could do something else, or and this is where this is quite different from classic IFS because the game is often we go back and forth, like no, yes, no, yes. What we play with here is the stepping back and coming from the space of awareness. See if we can be aware of the polarity, both sides, in the sense of just welcoming it as it is, and curiosity and enjoyment of it. And then 15 minutes from now, if Milo's like, oh, the girl, I could go back and nap with my daughters, and he's like, bye, like perfect. And then we heard one other part of his. We heard this sense of one that was kind of wishing his state was different, his space was different. Like, gosh, I'd really prefer if I was in more openness right now, more this awakened flow, more energized. Do we all know this part that would like us to be feeling differently? And where does that one show up for you? Where do you hear it? Like I'd like to be feeling different, I'd like to be more energized. I'd like to be more spacious, more in that in the sense of self. When you hear that, when you hear those words, where do they come from? Are they in your head? Are they out in front of you? Is it more a sensation of kind of contraction in your heart? Like this isn't so good. I want something different. Where do you find that part? And most importantly, do you know it as a part, or is it more like, no, that's me. I want something different than what's here. Can you find it as a part? And what happens when we see it as a part that's dissatisfied? What happens? Does something open up when we can see that this that wants it to be different is a part? When you see it, this is the gift of IFS. When we can see it as an object, and then we're aware of it, then where are we aware from? So where do you see that part? Milo, how does that show up for you, that voice you were describing? Where do you know it?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm noticing the voice as a part, but there's also another part that I think I'm more sort of blended with which opposes that part. So there's some resistance in my system, to just feeling that that doubt, perhaps even some I can find some sort of yeah, just not knowing, insecurity, grogginess, and there's some resistance to that. And that resistance I feel like I'm being blended with right now. Yeah.
Now, is the resistance different than the part that was like, I would like to be more energized. I'd like my state to be different. There's a different like a different voice that's like, I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel this grogginess. I don't want to feel what's here like that.
Yeah, I think that's like a maybe perhaps a third part that just came on top really. That yeah, that opposes that voice from earlier.
Uh,
So it's just resisting the preference.
uh-huh.
It pulls its perhaps we could call it a spiritual achiever part, that just wants to abide in this equanimity of neither push or pull.
So can we find this? How do you, is this getting too complicated? All these different parts, like, wait, there's that one, there's this third one on top, or how are we doing with it? Can we relate? What's your version of what Milo's describing? A part that wants things to be different. And then we're hearing a spiritual achiever that's like, no, we know better than this. We know that the spiritual game, it's all about like what is. What about that? And then I heard a flavor of another thing that I was pointing to. There's this sense of this, and this might just be in my mind, the sense of not wanting to feel the grogginess of what's here. I heard a little bit of that too. And I just, or maybe that's just here. I know that one so well. Do we know this one that this resists what's here, resists the state if I'm feeling uncomfortable? Okay.
Yeah.
So what do we do with, yeah, what you got, Milo? What do we do with all this?
Hmm. Huh. Yeah, just I'm trying not to fall into any sort of managing or fixing, but rather just softening and just lightly touching.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
See, Milo
And kind of
listened, like, but,
glad. Yeah,
Milo shared a
just
video with me this morning of a facilitator that's named Momoda Ma, and it was very beautiful the way she was speaking of parts. She describes it. You just, what if you just light gently touch it when a part comes up? It's just like gently being aware of it. Because we hear Milo's parts, and as you hear yours, the one that would like something to be different, maybe the spiritual achiever, just like gently touching. And then that gentleness, right? They're gently touch from self, gently meeting. Uh, all right, I think I'd like to open this up and see if there are any responses to this, but anything else, Milo, before we do? This is a nice start for us.
Thanks.
Anything coming up with Mila just shared before we go and meet Rossi? Even I'm not sure I'm pronouncing your name right. I'll need to get some help. But anything bubbling for us?
Totally relatable in my experience. Yeah, could follow exactly every word Milo was describing. So
Everybody doing all right? Anything else bubbling? Any concerns? And then lastly, how are you? How are you? So we kind of clear the space. And then we're about to go, Rossi. What do we think's there? What are her parts? What are her parts? How is aliveness expressing in her right now? And then what's the background? What's the beingness? Is it like, look at it, is it joy? Is it ease? Or is there a little shyness, nervousness? Whew. Hey, hi, how am I doing with pronouncing your name?
Thanks, Sid. It's Rosie, Rosie,
Rosie. Hey,
Rosie, Rosie.
Rosie. Great.
Yeah, thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you. Yeah, this has been a long time coming, Sid. I've wanted to come to these sessions for months now. So I am very, like, there's definitely an excitement and a sense of willingness in the parts. Yeah, a little bit of shyness now that I'm speaking. I was feeling more like, okay, I'm here, but now on the spotlight. Uh, I want to name, yeah, I've been receiving sessions with Antonio. So like Antonio being here is a unique
Wait, you've been
experience
doing
for me.
sessions with Antonio?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Yay.
Yes. And so it happened, it was me who mentioned you to him. So yeah, it's kind of like ironic, like it's, I think it's unique. And now I'm here. Yeah. Thanks,
Oh,
Antonio. Yeah. So I feel an extra shyness, kind of like orienting to Antonio being here and like me being in the group. Yeah.
yes.
There's
Well, let me
parts that
just
I
ask
wonder how that
when
is.
you say shyness, let me just invite, I'm curious for all of us as we hear Rosie speak of the shyness being here, as you hear her shyness, what happens in you? Is there a sense of being met by self, just loving this shyness in her, like seeing the innocence of that? Or does a part come up as well? Like, oh, we can help that, or like a little helper part, just to notice. And as we hear her shyness, hear her speak of shyness, is there connectedness here? What's that like for all of us? Because we don't want to miss this. This is the yummy part as we're meeting Rosie, as we get to meet each other. And then lastly, as she speaks of shyness, like is she just speaking about herself, or is she like touching a key on the piano? And we all know that. We all resonate. Oh, shyness. I absolutely know that. What's your part that can relate to the shyness, being in the spotlight and shyness? What's that like inside of you? Can you find the shyness part? And with your shyness part, how is it being met? Does another part come up and say, oh, that shouldn't be there, or go away? We don't want the shyness part. Or is it just being celebrated as perhaps we're celebrating Rosie's shyness? What's your relationship to shyness inside of you? Can you see the innocence, the beauty of it? Just like what we're doing with Rosie here. All right, tell us more, Rosie.
Thank you. Sid, it's actually Rosie with a C, not the Z. Rosie. Rosie.
Rose, Rosie.
Rosie. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I've
I
got
really
this.
appreciate
I
that.
grew up in the southern US. We talk really funny here, so I need extra help. Thank you.
And I could,
Rosie.
yes, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm originally from Bulgaria for anybody who's curious. Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what else? So there's an excitement. You notice there's a willingness, parts that are like, yes, here we are, willingness, and then there's the shyness. What else? What else are you finding here, or what are they arising in?
So, and I'm going to take a little bit of a leap here, but this is part of my, uh, like, yeah, how I relate. with myself. Yeah, so there was a part that was really kind of like arose when you asked the group to kind of like tune into the shyness for themselves. This part like really was a little bit surprised and curious of like, wait, I feel a little left out. Like, is this like, is Sid with me or like is he with the group? Like, what's the intention here? Um, so a little bit of like, wait, what's going on?
Isn't that the loveliest thing? It's my turn. I want to talk about things. I want to play. Isn't that the
And yeah, and also just like wanting to understand like the process. Like, yeah, I noticed, and I could, yeah, when you were with Milo, it seemed like it was like more about Milo's experience than the group.
yeah,
I could be totally
thank
wrong.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it's yes, I'm working on that. It feels like an art form. Feels like
Mm,
an art form here, and I'm learning as we go. And thank you for sharing what was going on in you. That's really helpful to hear.
thank you. Thank you for receiving that. Yeah. That part relaxes. Wasn't sure how it would be received. Um, so yeah, I feel like I don't like a somatic sense of, yeah, for me, since being here, it's been kind of like in the water. Like that's often a very strong sense in me. Kind of like I was like in the water, and I was wondering actually if there's a part that was sort of like really relishing being in that sense of water. It's sort of like it's such a somatically like arresting experience. Like it's just so like flowing. And I was wondering like, is this self? Or is this a part that really like knows and values this?
What's the sense of the water, Rosie? What's the sense of this water?
It's like a fluidity, a sense of like the edges are much softer. There's a sense of like floating.
And
I feel like the chest buoyancy kind of.
when you notice your parts, when you notice the foreground, when you notice the excitement, the willingness, the shyness, and the other parts, and this that is enjoying the water, right? Enjoying the buoyancy, enjoying the floating. What's the sense of the space? And I'm just going to invite all of us to kind of guess with me here as we're with Rossi's system. What's the space that it's all arising in? Does it seem like it's in a liquidity that's kind of an infiniteness of this liquidity, this water, or is the water being held in something or of something?
Yeah, I can't sense the edges necessarily. It feels kind of like a maybe there are edges, but I can't sense them. And then there's a little bit of a part of, oh, it's a familiar part, like, am I doing this right? Um, kind of plopped in the water.
Yeah, nice. Doing it right. If you can notice, for all of us as we hear Rossi's parts, where do we experience that they're located? Rossi, where do you see this doing it right part, enjoying the floating, this excitement, the shyness? As there's awareness of these parts in you, just that, maybe just that, just to be aware of these parts. And as you're aware of the parts, where are you aware from? Where are we aware from as we're aware of our parts? And that's when when we get to know, we get to be intimate with these flavors of self, of beingness. And I love, Rossi, how you're talking about this liquidity, this flow, this water, because it's often an image that the facilitators speak of. It's just this infinite ocean. It's this ocean of being, that's this water, this flow. And when they bring this into the conventional world, they often speak of self as flow, as fluidity, but the artists and the athletes as flow. So for all of us, how do we know this? Do we know flow? And what's most like flow that's here? And Rossi, as we bring this together, kind of any final words and talking about how you're making sense of your system right now?
Yeah, as you spoke, the sense of fluidity got even more present, and the parts sort of, I don't know if they receded, but like kind of like maybe they were like immersed in the fluidity, so not sensing them so directly as I was earlier. And yeah, yeah, I do feel gratitude. Like I said, it's been a long time coming to arrive here for me internally. So it's kind of like to actually have landed feels good.
Welcome.
Thank
As
you.
you land here, as you describe your parts being immersed in the fluidity, what about Rosie as she's with the seven of us, as we're all in this space together? What is this space? Could the space, the beingness that here, could that be this flow, this fluidity? And perhaps each of us as these bodies, these individuals are immersed in this shared beingness and this shared fluidity. And then lastly, as Rossi spoke of something changed with her parts as they were immersed in the fluidity. Are the parts completely separate from the fluidity? Are we completely separate from this shared beingness, from this fluidity? Or perhaps are we of it? And this is how you get to that place of the connectedness, the unity that the spiritual people speak of, as we notice that there's not really, nothing is absolutely separate. Let me open this up. Anything bubbling from what we just did with the last 7 minutes with Rossi? Somebody? What's that like, this fluidity, this flow? Inga.
I have a part that tries to make sense. I'm sitting here in my garden and my chickens are around, and there are these pictures on the screen, and there is a sense of connection, but it's so somehow my part is like, this is not real, these are just pictures on the screen right now. And yeah, so I just wanted to mention that this part, like, how do I make sense of all of this? So yeah.
Nice. Can we relate to that with our foreground and background, the sense of our parts, in the sense of this beingness that's here? Sometimes there's a sense of, how do I make sense of these parts? Sense of identifying this critic, this achiever, this shyness. How does the system make sense of that? Or how do I make sense of looking out the window or looking at the screen and seeing these others and seeing this form and these objects? Are they all part of the fluidity, or are they completely separate? Am I a subject and they're an object? Or is there more the simultaneity of both and, or is it just all in the flow? Anything else, Inga? No. Anything else bubble up before we go and see how life is moving in Brenda? Rossi, yes.
Yes, I do want to share. Yeah, that was an interesting experience for me, because I really, like, in the sense of flow and fluidity, I really felt like each of you. I really could say that. Yeah, and then when Inga spoke, I could feel that part in me, which is a very familiar part, which is like afraid of being judged, and sort of like And so I was holding, like, there were definitely two parts present. One that felt the connection, and the other one felt like, are you sure? Are you positive? Like, you may be imagining the connection. So that felt true. And I want to name, like, Brenda, like, there's some way that, like, when I see, like, when I was sharing and I would look up and see your smile, like, I really felt very connected with you. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you, Rosie.
Thank you. Thanks for this. Very rich.
Just as, and I'm sorry, I know my pronunciation just keeps changing. I like
It's okay. It's okay, sis.
I'm
Let
so
it go. Let it
sorry.
go. Yeah.
But I'll go with the Rossi.
Yeah.
But it's like
Ross is good.
as we hear Rossi, and do we notice our parts responding differently today? Different parts popping up. It's like, oh wow, it's so nice to get. I just silently connect with Brenda. It's like a part that enjoys that. Another one is, as Inga speaks of trying to make sense of this and understanding part, like, yeah, that's exactly what's going on in me, trying to make sense of. But just to notice, see if we can notice the parts that pop up as we go in us in response. The parts that popped up in response to Rossi. What parts were activated in you? Maybe it's like one that was enjoying the connection. Wow, she's speaking for me. Another one that, wow, I don't really understand what she's saying. That doesn't make sense to my system. I don't get that. I sure would like to. It's like, what, to notice the parts that arose. Anything else bubbling before we go to Brenda? Okay. Brenda, what's happening there? What's Brenda land?
Well, when you first asked, like, what are the two main things, what came to mind for me was the spiritual achiever and just very busy. Before I got on, I was very task oriented. But one thing I know I wanted to share that I even recognized more deeply as we got together, I was meditating this morning, and all of a sudden a vision came to me of the beautiful ocean below, as if I was scuba diving or snorkeling. And I sensed that's me within all of that beauty. And it was this beautiful feeling. And then all of a sudden, my head got thinking and thinking, wait a minute, because you're always thinking, I mean, I know overall I'm a good person, this and that. But it's like, where's those parts that you're still working on that you got to get better at? It's like that achiever came in so quickly as I was just noticing the beauty that I was as this ocean is. So yeah, that's my spiritual achiever side that, like how I don't dig like I used to. I will say that I'm grateful for that. But there's still for sure that part of me that you know, feels like I have somewhere to get as versus just I just am. So there's those parts there. And then, like I said, when I came in, I just have, before I came on, I was doing a lot of tasks. And, but it felt so good just to get in the group. I mean, I could have been one of those not get on, finish tasks, but there was that I can just drop into the connection, the ease, so easily. And those things will be there when we get off. So, yeah. And that being said, of course, when I'm in the meditation or I'm here in the group, it's lovely. And I really, as I think I've said in some of the other classes, I want more to be able to carry that into my everyday existence. So yeah, that's it.
Wow. Okay. So much. So as we all heard what Brenda shared, like, where did it go in you? And like, I got all these questions. It's like, if you were in my role right now, like, where would you, what window would you take with Brenda? Is it like this ocean she was describing, like just diving in this ocean and being there? Like, I'm curious about that, like, and then the tension that she found when she was there between being in the ocean and wait a minute, we have spiritual achiever stuff to do. We still got things that are challenging here. We need to like help them get to know the ocean. And then she speaks of the doing in the world, the to-do list, all that was going on. And it's just like, can we go find all of this in our own systems? In the to-do list. Like, and what is it? What's being longed for when we're doing in the world, when we're like, oh, okay, don't have time for the ocean right now. I got these things I need to do. What do we get when we find fulfillment, when we check things off our list? What do we find there?
Well, I think I just expressed it by saying, you know, release, accomplishment, I guess, you know.
What's accomplishment? What does accomplishment give you? Is a sense of okay, a sense of yay, I did good. And it's like, what is that? Is it
Yeah.
joy? Is it peace? Is it relief?
I think it's a combination of things, because when you first said that, I took a deep breath and I just let it go. So I could feel that ease for sure, knowing that it's done. Because I know I have certain responsibilities that definitely needed to be complete. So yes, there's that sense of relief and ease.
Then what's the
Also,
relation? Just
I was just going to say, like, also there's a part of me that's excited, or maybe pat myself on the back, because I know these things that I completed will bring joy to and positive things for others.
nice. Let me just invite us all into where Brenda's leading us. There's this sense of the ocean, this resting in the depths of the ocean. And maybe the ocean doesn't translate. You have a different word, like Rossi had fluidity. It might just be peace, stillness, love. But then the ocean is really rich to see, like this going the depth of the ocean. And then there's a sense of there's things that need to be done, the things that need to be completed. I have responsibilities. Enough of the spiritual stuff. There's real world stuff that needs to be done. Like, how does that play in each of us? That part that grabs us, the responsible one. And it's very real, right? Especially it's beautiful how Brenda describes these things she's doing. It makes life better for other people. It's like they're very real. We all have Milo's got his family on the other side of the door. You know, it's very real. But the both. And do we notice the movement to the either or, the depths of the ocean or the responsibility in doing? And this is, I mean, in IFS, there's this one last thing. But if we talk about parts as being burdened or unburdened. So let's say this to-do list part in us, the one that has responsibilities. Do you know that as carrying a weight, sense of a burden, like I must get this done or else, and it's like, oh, or the sense of a lightness of being when there's not kind of fear attached to it. And it's just in the flow. It even can be like an extenuation of the ocean, where like we're moving as the ocean in time as we're getting things done. And we'll keep playing with that. That's one of our themes, the nature of our parts. Anything else with all of this, Brenda?
No, thank you for adding that last piece, the reminder of just allowing that to be that part, to notice it more closely and that it can be part of that whole and is part of that whole.
Yeah.
But I noticed that in just mindfully approaching in that way, in a more mindful way, it will be. So thank you.
Nice. How are we all doing? Like this is recently we've had smaller groups, and this is kind of a bigger group of recent, and my parts are pulling me back to bed. Oh, yes. Milo, final words as you go back and join the girls.
Have fun.
I'll enjoy. Good to see
See
you.
you
Thank
later,
you.
guys. Bye.
Bye. Oh, how are we doing? I had a thought come up that, wow, maybe we're being, I wonder if this is too this kind of cerebral today in a way, and talking about the some of this, and I'm wondering if we're losing or how this is resonating. No. Okay. Anything bubbling that's wanting to be shared before we go to Elizabeth? And we only have Brenda for 15 more minutes, so we gotta like just a reminder. Anything bubbling? Any requests for how we go and where we go as we co-create? Anything at all?
I could say for me, it didn't feel cerebral. It really felt towards the end like that, like the both and like the feeling the ocean and experiencing the world, the physical world, and kind of like feeling that sense of embodiment of the ocean as I interface, which is actually exciting to sense into. Yeah, oftentimes I really feel as you're nodding, but Brenda, I feel like that either or. So to really feel it connecting feels really good.
Nice, thank you. How's that playing for each of us right now? The sense of either or both and, as we're aware of our parts in the foreground with whatever's coming up for you, whatever thoughts, feelings, and sensations. And then there's the background, the beingness, the ocean, the stillness, the peace, the flow, the love, the gentle touch. Do the parts feel kind of separate? Or do they feel like there's a connection, there's a connectedness? Similar to the space that we're in now with the seven of us. Do you feel like, wow, I'm just in my little space here. It's just my body. It's me here, and it's you guys that I'm being with on the screen. Or is there a connectedness? Like the both, is it both and, or kind of an either or? Hmm. Hey, Elizabeth.
Hey Sid, hey everybody. I'm aware that um in these groups with you, Sid, what is so priceless for me is this mentoring. Like I feel like you are mentoring me in there's like three things, um, which is amazing. The simultaneous view and the attitude of mind, the spirit of celebrating. It's not like parts work, like it's parts celebrating. Like this is priceless. This attitude, or the spirit of enthusiasm that I'm learning about from you. And the third thing is, like, there's this line you say that if it feels like a portal place for me, and it's you say, can even this be okay? And blah 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 blah, can even this be okay? And made a recording for myself so that I can keep awareness there, I can't get to this group a lot, but between times I can practice just going to that. Can even this be okay? And all three of these things I feel I'm being mentored in really increase self-presence and decrease suffering. And just life is better with these, just any one of these three. But it's, yeah, there's really a very unique mentoring going on here. I wish there were more teachers who taught it, but I haven't found some of this. So it just feels like, yeah, these are treasures and they're tools like I take away and practice, but I need to come back to get reminded and get more, you know, just soak in the re-soak in the teachings and the attitudes that you bring to this work. It just, I don't know, really feels like a game changer to me.
Wonderful. Here it feels more like throwing a party, just being together with friends and celebrating what's here, and then letting like we're playing a sport or cooking together, and then something just organically learns. The system just up. I love that word updating in IFS, like the parts update as we hear Elizabeth, and I think I can, like we can hear I hear the words, but I also like there's such an enjoyment of connecting on this level, as it almost feels like she's giving a thought song right now and being this space of wonder and openness, or whatever you're hearing. And it's just like I find, just like Abby was describing at the very beginning, like her parts find safety here. There's an helpfulness as we hear like Elizabeth, just the love that's there, the openness. It's like something in my system just really enjoys that. I love how this happens with all of us. So thank you, Elizabeth. I really love hearing how this supports you on a personal level. This has been the game for me, to try to find a way where it can be kind of playful, fun, connected, like a party, where our healing can happen and where deepening of self-abidance can happen. That's been the whole aspiration of my work, is just that. And so I love hearing how your system is making sense of it and what it is for you. And then I'm also curious, how's Elizabeth doing now in this moment with everybody? What do you find? How's it going?
Hmm. Well, it's just great to be on the call because I don't know, there's like a little mini awakening on every call for me. There's like a more clarity, more you're mentoring and compassion, and there's all of those aspects of self are kind of blossom on this call. It feels like maybe there's and parts can maybe get, there's more clarity about, oh, that's a part that felt like me all the time. Oh, maybe that's a part, and can that be okay? And there's just a kind of a, blossoming, and then and it doesn't have to last forever. I know there's a part that, like, oh, but we got to hang on to this date, and really these are tools, and we'll just, if we keep using these tools, we can end suffering. But I don't know that it works like that. But um
We got to pause for a minute, because that was such a good one, the way you presented that part. When we heard Elizabeth describe that part, it's like, yes. And we all go, yes, I know that so well. Like, yes, this, I want to hold on to this. I want this. If I can only have that continue, this space continue, this, then it's like, there'll be less suffering. It's like that part, like that precious part, And where do you hear that? Where do we all hear that part that Elizabeth's pointing to, that wants to kind of hold on to the good stuff, to the ahas and the openness? Where is that in you? Is it like the heart? Like, yes, that, or is it like a spiritual achiever? Like that. Let's just keep it. Let's just hold on to that. We get, what's that for you? And like, where is it? What else, Elizabeth? Where is that
Yeah.
part for you? Where do you hear that part for you?
Well, actually, what's arising is a part that's like, yeah, but I gotta be real too. Like, there's a lot of kind of parts with raw suffering, parts that are with raw suffering, and I don't want to. And I'm saying hello to those parts, and that's okay that there's raw suffering, but so I guess that's why this group is so helpful, because that there's I can bring those parts that are experiencing raw suffering and here, and there's like a lot of, you use the word updating, but there's a lot of I don't even know the word for it, but like everything is more okay, more
Oh,
it takes the edge off the raw suffering parts that are having a really hard time in this journey.
like I think you're really hitting on something here. I just want to, let's just include everybody in this one when you mentioned the word raw suffering. I don't want to invite us to go looking for it, but I just want us to notice, for all of us to notice, if there are parts that are contracted in us that are finding some relief in the sense of they get to be seen, they get to be included, what Elizabeth's calling raw suffering. As we come together in this space together, and there's this sense of like being curious and enjoying each other's systems, that it allows some of our parts that have just been hidden, like, this isn't safe, I'm going to stay down, I'm going to stay away, right? It's not safe. That some of them start to get to be like, well, maybe I can like do a little tippy toe, like do a little step in and feel the water. Like, do you have any parts that, and not to look for them, just to notice any that are coming up, because we're not doing a spiritual achiever thing. Hey, let's go down in the underworld and bring up our parts. Instead, it's like, do you notice that there's some parts that do have contraction? Elizabeth calls the raw suffering, that are getting to enjoy or feel some of this welcoming, to feel some of the space that's here. Are there some parts that just to be here is a big deal, even if they're like a mile off in the background, but just to be here, just to be included, it's a big deal. Maybe they're seen a little bit, this raw suffering that gets to be included. And lastly, notice you don't have to do anything. It's just here. Before I go back to Elizabeth, we only got a few more minutes with Brenda, and I'm wondering if Brenda has anything she'd like to share with all of this before she leaves us. Oops, muted. Sorry.
I said, just gratitude. Of course I could relate to what everybody's saying. I have all those parts too. And just grateful for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, anything else with this, with the raw suffering? It's such a beautiful thing you're bringing up. Anything else you'd like to share with that?
Just makes me so grateful for this, that you offer this group. And I mean, I just, there's such a gratitude. I don't even know the name. I'm just always telling my husband, like, this group is amazing, and it doesn't even charge anything, and like, it's priceless. The price, I mean, it's just, I feel like you give us so much, and you give so much of yourself. That's my projection, but just thank you. Thank you, Sid.
Thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth. Gosh. How do we do? How'd you do in receiving the gifts of Elizabeth here? How'd you do with that? Do with receiving her gifts? And did she help you get to know, maybe get to know your parts in a little different way or a little more intimacy with some as we heard her? And then your relationship with self, with the background. How's that right now? What is the background? What is the beingness that's here for you? Is it still more the ocean, the fluidity? Are we any of us deep diving right now? Or is it more just ease or emptiness or stillness or love and connectedness? We're gonna go to Antonio in just a moment, but before we do, is there anything bubbling, anything that wants to be shared before we go to Antonio? And who knows where that's gonna go?
Just want to let you know, Sid, I probably have to go in 15 minutes, but please go to Antonio
Oh,
first.
No,
And,
no, this is,
no,
I'm
no,
so
no.
glad you shared that. Antonio, is it all right if
No,
we take a
I enjoy
detour?
listening. I just enjoy being here.
We're taking a detour. We're detouring to Inga.
Gosh, I have a part.
Hey,
No,
hey.
sorry, Antonio. I mean, my parts are just today enjoying listening here, and I had the one coming up that says, well, I have no idea what is here. I don't know what to say.
What's it like? What's it like the listening, Inga? What's it like the enjoyment of listening? What are you finding? What's that experience?
It's very enjoyable. It's very, and as I shared before, there's the sense of connection. And there's especially a sense of connection with everything around here. And that's where the part came up. It's like, how can I have the sense of connection with my, okay, with the garden and the chickens and everything around, but with the screen, it seems so unreal to this piece of me, you know. But there is a sense of connection with all of you. So, and when we started, I realized there's a tiredness, just a, oh, I want to sleep. I want some ease. And so good to see, well, this is already here. And there's just nothing really to do. So listening was perfect.
Oh, just this enjoyment of listening. Just as Inga's sharing all this, can we find a resonance with all of it in ourselves? There's an enjoyment of listening. Like what parts of you are enjoying the listening? What parts are enjoying the listening? In the sense of the connection. Maybe ones that are really enjoying the connection. Like, oh, I can relax more. There's a connection here. And then, like Inga said, we've been on for an hour. Like, this is a lot. It's like tiredness. There's tiredness here. You have parts like, oh, this is enough. I'm full now. It's like we're tired, just tired. It's like there's a lot to take in. Tiredness. And then she describes there's a part that wants ease, that wants more ease. What about that for all of us? Something that wants more ease. This is we don't just not to miss the gifts of what Inga's pointing to in her system for us. Tell us more, Inga.
You know, it's so good to know that this even ease, you know, it's already here, and a sense of just being completely okay. Of course, there's a part that's no, I don't have it. I want some tea, you know, I want a nap, but and also, I don't know how to talk about this. It's amazing, you know, I heard others talk about the spiritual achiever, and for me, it's also a critical part that was like, I tried this, well, today is an experiment of not doing anything, you know. and not making a decision, not doing anything. And it's just amazing what gets done, you know. It's like, and so this part says, well, I screwed my plan because I planned to be on this meeting. Isn't that funny, you know? I mean, I'm really celebrating that part. It's like, yeah. Okay.
It's kind of a fun thing, this playing with, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. Some people describe, again, we've been playing with the foreground and background here, right? We often play with that just as a skillful means of talking about the parts as the foreground and self being this background. And like we might say, okay, we're not going to have the parts do anything. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to rest as being. But then with like Rossi's word, this fluidity of being, the fluidity of it, did we find that there can be movement, even a sense of doing in this beingness? That's why some people love dance. Sometimes dance can just be this flow, effortless flow. And
You know,
like,
so
as we,
everything just gets done, you know. And the funniest thing was, over the entire day, you know, there was a sense of, well, things just completely fall into place before I can even, you know, this morning I thought it would be so nice to do an IFS meditation. And guess what? A friend called me and said, well, do you have some time? The entire day was like that. It's like, I don't know. Things just get done.
just as you described that, just for all of us, sometimes there's a sense of there's just the flow, there's just the fluidity, there's just the flow, there's just the ease, there's just the love, there's just the causeless okayness of being, or the sense of sometimes fulfillment, the absence of lack, right? And then we can use the open hand for that. And then there's a sense of some want, some contraction, some doing with the sense of getting something. I'm going to get some relief. I'm going to get some accomplishment. I'm going to get some okayness. And it seems to be such a subtle art in noticing as we play this game, and getting more and more noticing the discernment between when it's like this and when it's, and this is why they call it in IFS, they call it self-leadership, when this sense of we're moving from this openness, this beingness. And then we can notice if we're moving from a burdened part, it's more because burden, very nature of a burdened part is a sense of lack and want. And so there's a little bit of this. And you'll also notice that there'll be a sense of future, focusing on the future, getting something in the future. Anything else with all of this, Inga?
No, I think that's it. It's like good to be here with you all, and I really enjoyed, you know, this. Sometimes I don't have the words, but to receive these gifts, and also I can see how it really plays out. What you do in this group, it plays out in my life. You know, the attitude of welcoming, and also seeing more and more what the parts are really longing for. It gets much it's not just something that is I practice here for 1.5 hours with you, you know. It's more, no, this is just plays out in my life, in everyday life. And my parts really like it.
Parts really like it.
Yeah, you know, they learn more and more that what they are really longing for is always available. You know, they don't have to push or get things or manipulate, or let's control it, let's figure out the future. So it's not necessary.
So what about that for all of us? Is kind of last minute that Inga shared, exploring this welcoming in the sense of what her parts are wanting, and then that she's describing that there's an updating, a gradual updating that's happening in her system as the parts are starting to recognize that what they're longing for is already available. About that last one in your system, how's that playing in your system with the parts? And notice maybe a spiritual achiever will come in. It's like, no, I want what Inga's have. I want what Inga's describing. I want more of that. And it's just, oh, how sweet the spiritual achiever is here. But it just happens on its own as you play. It just happens. And then we can, it's useful to speak of it as parts, but we don't even have to do that. We can just be about you. Like, what does Sid really want? And then as Sid starts to realize that what he wants, more and more of that can be found right here in his very nature. Right? I mean, that's where it seems to go. Like, that's where there's really skillful means in playing with the parts. Okay, so we've got Antonio, and then back to Inga, and back to Abby. It's sorry, Inga, did you have something else? Sorry. No. Okay, we got Antonio and Abby. We put her on the spot at the very beginning, but we don't want to miss out. I think there's more there. But let's go to Antonio. Antonio.
Hello. Hmm. Hmm. It's quite a challenge to put in words my experience today. It's very unlike what I usually experience in these sessions. It's quite amusing, actually. Not for my parts. They're warning me, like, don't speak, don't speak for me. It's not amusing for me. I really appreciated being able to. I really appreciate being able to notice. I mentioned yesterday the spiritual performer. And I notice how annoyed they are today, particularly. They feel like it's a bit of a like he just pushes them around, and they're exhausted, and they're like fed up with him, like they can't take him anymore. There's also a sense of isolation, and I think I can relate that to the group being like unusually large today. And I feel like some parts are, just like Rose was talking of shyness, there's a part of me that's also a bit shy around that. And there's uneasiness, it feels like a lot of resistance, and it got me wondering. Like I became really curious. Like, so where's that energy today? Because we know it never leaves, right? So where is it? And again, like yesterday, there's I don't know, like there's a presence that you can sort of I get a sense that there's something, and I don't know how I referred to it yesterday, but today I got this word that Raymond mentioned yesterday, surrender. There's a sense of which is just another name for okayness, right? Like there's an okayness, even if it doesn't feel like that. Like it feels really uncomfortable. And so yeah, that's where I'm at.
Oh, Antonio, where is self? May all of us join in this inquiry with Antonio. Where is self?
There's something about us getting together that it's hard for me to put my finger on it. There seems to be there's a flavor, there's a suggestion, it's implied, but yeah, that's how it is right now.
And oh, bye, Inga. Bye.
Thank you.
Oh. While we're in this inquiry, this is question, where is self? And we also hear from you, Antonio. We hear from Antonio the sense that there are annoyed parts. There are really parts that are fed up with this spiritual performer, with this push. There's a resistance, there's an uneasiness. How's your system with all of this being here?
I think it's open to not knowing really, because as I said earlier, there's an inclination to see it in some I don't know, it's like some surrender, like some yeah, like there's but then again, there's another part that calls that resignation, and it's sort of sticking his finger at it and saying no, that's not surrender. That's you're just that's resignation. And so truth is, I don't know.
What's that like? As we all hear this sense of the space of not knowing that Antonio is pointing to, this not knowing. Do you have parts that are like, I'm not going there. I don't like this, that are uncomfortable with not knowing? Whereas Antonio points to a part that's like, well, this is like resignation. This isn't it. This isn't finding okayness. This isn't a sense of surrender. This not knowing, do you have parts that resist that? is it uncomfortable, Antonio? Is there kind of a intrinsic uncomfortableness with this not knowing in your system, with the reactions of the parts to it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. And it's also because as we feel you, as you know, my sense as I feel into this space, there's I feel an openness in Antonio. Like we're not feeling there's not like this anxiety, this we're not feeling the like the contraction and but like what's that like being in the not being this not knowing?
There's so many flavors to it. I mean, yeah, discomfort is the most obvious, but
Mhm.
like there's something around it, I feel, you know, like what I want to be really respectful. I think that's why I don't want to, you know, I don't want to. I don't want to make any of these parts feel unwelcome or,
Nice.
you know, discarded or preferred over, or, you know, or
Beautiful.
I think I think they would prefer it if I didn't. You know, this space that you are creating for us here is,
Um,
and I know you're creating for each of us, but now I mean, you know, my system. So just, you know, and just like Elizabeth, like she was sharing why she's so appreciative of this space. You know, I feel
Mm.
what I really appreciate is how conducive it is for this openness, like even in, you know, the protectors in my system that will try and avoid discomfort or pain or suffering of any
Yeah.
kind. They'll relax when I'm in this group, and they'll,
Nice.
you know, will allow for your guidance. So it's
Gosh. Well, I'm so appreciative of what you pointed out to us today. For whatever reason, we rarely go here to the sense of the self quality of not knowing. And it's fascinating the discomfort that can come up in it that you're pointing to. And I wish we had an hour where we could we could explore this not knowing and the parts. And I love how you describe the sense of wanting all the parts, everything to be welcomed and not a sense of preference, just everything, welcoming all the parts while the discomfort is here. This seems to be such a precious edge you've taken us all to. Thank you, Antonio. Any final thoughts with this before we shift over to our friend Abby?
thank you.
Wow. Everybody doing all right? That was super deep, that one. The not knowing. Everybody doing okay? Okay. How's it going, Abby?
Yeah, good. I had a little part that kind of came up midway and thought, oh, did I have my turn and I didn't even notice it? So I kind of appreciate, but I don't know that I have anything Well, I had parts, they're a lot more settled. I had two really dominant parts I arrived with, anxiousness and a guardian at the gate who I'm learning to listen to, was there kind of monitoring. So you think this is okay? Is it really okay? And they're both a lot quieter, and this space around them and us feels bigger. And I feel like a couple of people have pointed to that. There's this kind of fresh air space that was there before, and now it's quite expansive. And I love playing in this space because I kind of get what Inga was saying about the unrealness of it, but it's kind of real and not real because we're all on Zoom, and that's strange and connected at the same time. But I listen and I think, I don't know what I'm going to say next, but I don't know what Sid's going to say, and I don't know what I'm going to think. I don't know what Elizabeth's going to say. And I have a thought that agrees with what Elizabeth said. And it gets progressively more muddled sometimes as the session progresses, and the sense of us being in very separate spaces starts getting a bit melty. And that's really interesting for my system. It's like, oh, well, maybe we're not all separate. And you draw attention to that all the time. Where's that in your system? Oh, I find that. I find that. I find that. And I'd forgotten what how interesting and kind of fun that is, actually, because I've not been for a couple of weeks. So, and I second everything Elizabeth said. She articulated so beautifully, I think, what you offer here. I hope you get the recording and listen to it back.
Thank you. What's the fun of it? I love hearing that word fun, because I know that there's you've described some shyness of your parts, and there's some shyness, and then you're describing the kind of the safety and helpfulness, and then there's a sense of fun. I don't know what to tell. I don't. You gotta tell. You gotta give us more, Abby. We want more Abby. We want more Abby. See, tell us more about fun. Tell us more about something. What's happening in Abby land?
I suppose the parts that find it fun can emerge when the gatekeeper gets to relax. And I'm appreciating the work of the gatekeeper more. I was listening to the recording of a session from another kind of meditation community yesterday. And really that part came online and really appropriately. And it's like, if you were in that group, you wouldn't be in that group, you would be gone, and that would be entirely appropriate. And just kind of not treating it as a resistant walling part, but saying, you were saying something useful to me from my interests, and then maybe I take it into a bigger space and make sense of it. But when somewhere is consistently psychologically safe, he gets to kind of chill and put his feet up. And then there's room for kind of fun and experimenting with what's this reality like right now.
I like the celebrating the gatekeeper, especially when the gatekeeper says no. The wisdom of that. I have like 3 minutes left. How about one more minute of Abby, and then if there's anything else that's there, then we'll kind of open it up to see what's bubbling. Anything else that you'd like to share about it's like the anxiousness and the guardian at the gate. You talked about the gatekeeper, the playing in the space.
I'm appreciating my ability, I suppose, to appreciate parts that are like that gatekeeper rather than trying to override them, or
Yes.
or a spiritual achiever or a good student part coming in and saying, no, you have to participate, you have to do this thing, you have to be uncomfortable to grow. And that part is, resistant, and it's blocking your progress. And that there's been a lot of flack directed in that direction, and it's been really interesting interesting this week to say, okay, this is a part I can work with, and that's okay, and watching how that settles my system. And the constant fact that, you know, I've been coming to your groups for quite a while, on and off, and it's always been celebrating parts. And I feel like I've been really slow, like letting that penny drop. I really don't celebrate all my parts. And then every now and again, I celebrate a part that I haven't been celebrating and think, oh, that's what Sid's trying to get us to do.
Oh.
And I'm sure the penny will drop on multiple more occasions, and it will feel completely fresh in that moment. It's like,
Oh. I know, what would that, because same game I'm playing, like what would it be like if literally all my parts were celebrated, welcomed and celebrated? I mean, that's, we're all playing the same game. And so yes. And what about Abby's leadership today with the gatekeeper? Because we hear her speaking about the gatekeeper and the alternative of the polarity and the struggle. No, we need to override this. We need to be uncomfortable. We need to do, we all know this, right? You got to be uncomfortable for growth, that part that's doing that. And then the sense of, wait a minute, there's a reason the gatekeeper is here, and like hearing that. And then, wow, when it is safe, the gatekeeper puts her legs up on the table, and then there's just safety. So I love how you've been leading the edge of that today. Any final words, Abby?
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Anything bubbling? We've just got 1 minute left. Anything bubbling that's wanting to be shared as we move towards closure in this final minute?
Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you. I really enjoyed this hour and a half. Amazing.
Nice.
I'll be back.
Nice.
Mm.
It's like, I like saying this at the end as we think back through this hour and a half, and we think about like what windows we went through and where we went, and how they were like all your windows. It was all your sharing. It was all your openness, that we just followed your parts, and we all just kind of found resonance with your parts, resonance with the flavors of self that you mentioned. How we just all explored together in this celebration. Oh, thank you for being here. Thank you for your gifts. Come again. See you later. Bye.
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 Tina.